Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Well, we're now Erev Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Rosh Chodesh Sivan. We're coming to the month in which the Torah was given. So, I'd like to begin today with a quotation from Kriyat Shema L'Amitav, which we say just before we go to sleep. We use the prayer to Hashem because we're entering into the darkness of the night and the darkness of sleep. So then we say, V'hor einai, please give light to my eyes, Penishana Mavet, lest my sleep is transferred to death. Ki ata ameir liishon bat ayin. You are the one who gives light to the little man who is the daughter of the eye. Maybe some of you know that there's a moshav even called bat ayin, the daughter of the eye. So you say, no, in the middle of the eye, there is the little man. So it's become also in Hebrew, Ish is a strong man, a personality. Ishon is a dwarfed image of that personality. And why is it placed in the eye? I'd like to begin this with a story. In the Holocaust, we know that the SS guards, they used to try all forms of playing with the life and death of Jews. There was one SS guard who was known to be extremely cruel, even by the standards of the death camps. And he was fond of doing the following. He brought in front of him Jews, frequently especially liked to choose the Jews who looked like Jews. And then he said to them as follows, you see here I've got a gun in front of me and I'm going to shoot you to death. But there's one way in which I've made a rule. I'm not going to kill the person in front of me. I have two eyes. One eye is natural and one eye is artificial. And the artificial eye was made in such a clever manner by the best professional eye specialists in Germany, and you know we've got the best eye specialists of all the world. And it's very difficult to distinguish. If you can tell me clearly which is my natural eye and which is my artificial eye, if you solve this correctly, I let you go this time. And in case you're incorrect, I will kill you on the spot. The person says right away, I know, I can see that your left eye is your natural eye, and the right eye is the artificial one. Says, how do you know for sure? I know for sure. What's your sign? My sign is as follows, that your right eye is filled with hatred and cruelty. The left eye is just a blank. So therefore, the left eye must be the artificial one, and the right eye, which is expressing your character, is filled with your character. So you let him off. What lies behind this? That's a story. But there's a deeper aspect to this. And this has application to quite a few of you. The sages say, if you want to know who is a good shidduch, they say, every color, whose eyes are beautiful, then you can assume that her character is beautiful, her whole being is beautiful. So look at the eyes, and from there you will know. This goes back to what we find in the Chumash, frequently mentioned, also concerning the matriarchs, the mothers of the people of Israel, and many verses in the Bible, and even more so in the words of the sages. There's even laws like this. A person, let's say for a teruma, they say, to heap offering he has to give to the priest. They say that there's 3 levels of people, because the Torah does not say how much you should give. So we say a generous person, he gives 1/40 of his produce to the Kohen. That's the one who's generous. But the this is generous, the one Eino Tova, he's got a goodly eye. And the one who's Eino Tzorah, the one who's a bit more miserly, he'll only give 1/60. And the medium one will give 1/50. And this is used constantly. We say also, and I'm sure you've heard the expression Ain Hara. Ain Hara means an eye that is filled with jealousy. And the jealousy often leads to hatred. That's Ain Hara. And therefore the sages say, this idea that people say Bli Ain Hara, I always tell them, it's like speaking on Shabbos about business. You speak to someone a business deal, which you're not allowed to do. Then you say, Nish Shabbos Gerät. What I'm telling you is not what you're supposed to say on Shabbos. But I benefit by meeting you here, and I want to do a business deal with you. Yeah? But Nish Shabbos Gerät. He thinks by saying you shouldn't talk about it on Shabbos, that gives you permission to go and talk about it on Shabbos. Similarly, the sages say, you want to have blessing, keep it hidden. Don't go and start praising. That sometimes people do this, they praise their child, they say, so handsome and so fantastic and such a genius, so many talents and so on. You shouldn't do that, because you should not overpraise situations, because it leads to Ain Hara. People will hear it and they'll say, what do you mean? I've got a, in general conversation, what do you mean? I've got a son who's much better than that, and your son isn't quite like that. Obviously, if you start speaking, the sages say, all the praise of a person in front of him, it leads that person often to false pride, and people who are listening and so on will be jealous, and they'll say you're not right, and they'll contradict it. Don't be ostentatious, neither in what you do. Like today, people will say, oh yes, we go and publicize, have a fantastic banquet, and so on. We're far too ostentatious. The big Yetzer Hara of the generation where people's mission in life is have fun. So therefore, they try to splash abroad, and everybody should know about their wealth and what they've got, and what it's not the way. And people also even in the whole situation, that people like to publicize all their good points. It's not a good idea, because it brings Ain Hara. Even if you don't go to the esoteric aspects of this, which have some truth, I'll tell you, even there have been experiments made with plants, that if you speak nicely about plants, then they grow. If you look at them with jealousy, don't want them, then they wither. Even the plant world. And certainly it happens also, as mentioned by the Gemara, it happened also in human relationships. That's where it happens most, and that's what does most harm. So when people say, you'll find, people Kenain Hora, there's a Kenain Hora, and then they can talk what they want. It's in a contradiction. But what lies behind it? The eye. The eye reflects the innermost emotions of the person. And that is why we find throughout the Torah, and that's the significance of the little man who is found inside the little mirror which you can see in the eye of a person. So that's the idea, Ishon Bat Ayin. Why do I say this? It has a close connection with this text which you've got in front of you. I want to tell you, I'm not surprised. I just saw someone who came from a very talented young man but he came from a most unusual background, filled with talent, and he also managed to become the disciple of the greatest Gedolei Hador, a big genius in Torah. And I see that he, like I knew Rab Dessler also, although he doesn't always quote him, but Rab Tzadok HaKohen, which we're studying, is one of the best texts found, especially in the last few hundred years, to explain to us the inner depth of Torah. And it is so good because he goes right to the source. He explains phrases in the Tanakh and shows how those phrases reflect deep teachings, and that goes a stream through the totality of oral tradition, both the halachot and the agadot. So I think this person, I just read yesterday some article by my son, so I saw there that this person, he said, today what gives me most inspiration is Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen, which is appreciated not just by the Hasidic world, but by all the world of today that want to go more deeply into understanding the inner parts of Torah. And he explains the esoteric aspect of Torah in a way that makes them the actual truth that we see in life. If we just think what people today call, it's really Torah psychology at its best. So in this passage, which you've got in front of you, he's asked the following question. All the festivals, Kol Amoadim, they're all called Shabbaton. They're all called a Shabbaton, all the festivals. Shabbat. Today we use the word Shabbaton. It's used also when people make a bit of a larger Suda on Shabbos for a group of people. That's even a total Shabbos program. But Shabbaton in the Chumash is used for all the Yamim Tovim. He brings many examples. Kamo b'Yom Rishon Shabbaton, Yom Hashmini Shabbaton. That's on Sukkot, the first day and the eighth day are both days of rest as Yom Tov. Rosh Hashanah is Shabbaton Zichron Teruah. Rosh Hashanah is also Shabbaton, where we enter more deeply into the inner zikaron, memory, and what it arouses from the blowing of the shofar. Yom Kippurim is called Shabbat Shabbaton. It has in it some aspects of the holiness of Shabbat, where the essential aspect of Shabbat is in the word Shabbat. Shabbaton means it's also got in it some aspects of Kedushat Shabbat. Now, what's the difference between Shabbat and Shabbaton? We've spoken about this before. It's that it's a deeper aspect of connecting up with Hashem through what is known as a mo'ed. A mo'ed means a meeting. It comes from the root to meet. To bring things together. The root yada. Yada is used in the Chumash. It's used Eitz Hada'at Tovara, about that. Eitz Hada'at. It's also used for Adam Yada et Ishto. The highest level of the unification of two souls comes in marriage, like expressed by Adam and Eve. Adam Yada et Ishto, that is Da'at. When we have Chokhmah, Bina, V'Da'at, then the Da'at, Chabad is Chokhmah, Bina, V'Da'at. The two aspects of knowledge. One is the knowledge that absorbs truth intuitively. Bina means to have a power of analysis, bein davar or bein davar, to see the difference. This analysis. The synthesis of the power of analysis together with the absorption of wisdom produces da'at. For example, Chokhmah Bina V'Da'at in learning Torah means, learning Torah, you've got to know the facts. But that's not enough. Gemara says, for example, a person is always ligma. Gamara means just to get, if possible, a more complete aspect of what's known as bekiyot, to know what's written, or what's today, what used to be derived orally, today what's written. And what is lisba inshe? Svara. Svara means to use your power of an analytical thinking, that's svara, which is found in the midot she'atorah nidreshet behem. So you need svara for what it says, kal vachomer and binyan av, and then klal ufrat. All those things have to do with analysis. But what is da'at? It's to unify the Gemara with the svara, to unify the power of absorption of facts together with analysis. And what that produces, da'at, which means more complete knowledge, because one without the other is not complete, it's incomplete. Like the Gemara even discusses the question, who is greater? They were in the time of Rabbah and Rav Yosef, so there were two very great scholars. These were the greatest scholars of their time, Rabbah and Rav Yosef. One of them was called Sinai, because he had fantastic knowledge of Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef had a store of knowledge in his mind that was phenomenal. In that he was the greatest. Rabbah was an Okeharim. He was able to uproot mountains. That means he had the power of analysis on deep level. Question, that's a real discussion in the Gemara, which is greater? Well, you need both, there's no question. You need people who are like Sinai, you need people who are Keharim. I mean, let's say in recent times, the greatest mind of Sinai was without a doubt, everyone agrees to that, Maran Rav Ovadia Yosef. His Bekiyot was phenomenal. Because what he held in his mind was fantastic. Not only every aspect of Shas Bavli and Yerushalmi, but he knew all the Rishonim and all the Achronim, whether Sfadim, Ashkenazim, all of them, he knew them all. And in his responsa, I remember as a youngster, when I was learning here, even then he was famed for this. Then he was a little Bezdin here, wasn't yet the chief rabbi. But I went to his apartment, surrounded all the way by shelves of books, and if you wanted to have sources, I would go to him with a certain subject, and he would, in that time there wasn't a computer, but he would give me a computer, like, I've still got the cards, he'd give me even 20 sources to look up where that subject which I asked him about, where I could get the answer. But on the other hand, there were other poskim who were great in Eon as well. I went to Briskerov, was quite different. Briskerov was also a Boki. Of course, you have to have both. Rav Yosef also had power of Eon. Of course, you have to have both to some extent. Briskerov was at that time known as the greatest master of Eon. He was the son of Reb Chaim Brisk. Reb Chaim Brisk introduced in the yeshivot. In fact, his seder in learning, when he was still a Talmud, he used to spend time learning at least 8 pages of Gemara with Rashi Tres Rishonim. In the afternoon, he learned 1/8 of a page and analyzed it deeply. And you find out that it's a Chedush of Chaim, the deep analysis on the most advanced level. And today also, it's well known, the Brisker Derech is a derech of deep analysis, while others have a different approach amongst the possible. So we need both to make da'at. Now I'll also explain to you why we have Chochmah being of a da'at, Chabad. Chabad's like this. The Baal HaTanya, he began his early chinuch in Torah in the Litvish yeshivas on a very high level. Became a very big master also of halacha. His Shulchan Aruch is accepted by the biggest mitnagdim, by the biggest opponents of Hasidus, because it's big. In certain aspects, there's the Hilchot Talmud Torah. He's got the best compilation of the halachot concerning learning Torah, which exists, and the Mishnah Rule quotes him all the time. And all the poskim do. But why did he call his movement that he started Chabad? Because he saw, later in life, he came close to Hasidus, so he recognized that in the way of learning, let's say in Volozhin and the other big yeshivot of that time, which were on a very high level, and they took in only people who were really geniuses, and there they studied, there they had a seder of learning in in different shifts, and the learning went on 24 hours without a stop. In any case, he saw that amongst Hasidus, there's more emphasis on developing the emotions to serve Hashem. And Bina is belay. Bina comes from an intuitive power of analysis, but also of understanding the deeper meaning. He said, okay, you can have a very high level of Chochmat Torah, become a Talmud Chacham, we're all still Talmidei Chachamim, but you might miss out a bit and have to become proud of it. Once you become proud of Torah, you can't really absorb it properly. Pride comes in. Also, perhaps you're neglecting tefillah a bit too much. Although it's true, Shimon Yochai, because he was so much involved in Torah, so it was permitted for him to minimize tefillah. Nevertheless, he saw for his generation it was important to spread the Torah to all parts of the Jewish people by emphasizing the joy of serving Hashem, emphasizing the deep connection with Hashem through emotional prayer, and also the improvement of all aspects of the character. This needs a strong emphasis. That was the Bina. So therefore you saw, you've got to combine the two to produce the Da'at. And that's the Lubavitch today. They're following this way in a fantastic manner. They're really helping to save hundreds of thousands of Jews who otherwise, if they were going to yeshiva, they just say, it's not for me, it's too difficult, it's too far removed. But they use methods of arousing the emotions which are necessary and will become involved with Torah, and therefore they're very successful. Baruch Hashem, Hashem's giving every bracha to spread Torah to all sections of the nation. So that's Chabad. Now why am I introducing all this? Because I want to explain that the next stage of this, which is that it's a great teaching which is not so quite apparent in the Gemara, but it's shown in the Gemara also when it describes what is the difference between Shabbat and Yom Tov. So we see Shabbat and Shabbaton, we spoke about that. So, but it says this is based upon something further, which is a halacha. Shabbat kaviyah v'kaima. Shabbat is a holy day, a meeting between Hashem and Am Yisrael, and also really the rest of the world, which is fixed in nature and never changes. The seventh day is the holy day, and it's due to the Jewish people and the campaign that was made over 100 years ago, when the suggestion was made that in the calendars of the nations they should skip a day for certain reasons to fit it in with the astronomical developments. So a big campaign was made by the Jewish people not to do it. There were others who joined in, the Christians and Muslims then joined in for the similar reason. But many people, it was a big struggle. But I know, from studying the history of this, the chief rabbi, Times Chief Rabbi Hertz in England, he was a pioneer in this, to make sure that the seventh day would always be the Saturday, and there should be no change in the calendar. Until today, Baruch Hashem, there has been a change, because it would create chaos. He explained it was a Christian Muslim. Because the seventh day, Kriya V'Kaim, is a fixed holiness. And on a Shabbat, Hashem sends down a power of Neshama Yitera. He sends down a higher power of the Spirit to those who observe the Shabbat, because they should observe it. And this is Kriya V'Kaima. What does it represent? Zohar says it represents Itaruta de La'ela. It means a spiritual arousing that comes from Hashem, who is the master of the world, and brings it down to the earth. And where the oneness between Hashem and the world is established through the Shabbat. That's why it's the pinnacle of the account of creation in the first chapter of the Chumash. And you might say, there's a problem. But if you read the Bible as we have it, chapter and verse of the Bible, which is in nearly all printed Bibles, follows the division of chapters not of Jewish tradition. The reason being that the first printers of the Bible were non-Jews, and therefore they accepted the Christian division of chapters of the Bible, and as a result it went into all the further prints until today, except Koren. If you look at that, why do I like the Jewish Bible? Jewish Bible also keeps chapter and verse like it in all the Chumashim, all the quotations to find a verse. You'll see on one side it's got a division of chapters, on the other side it's got another division. The other division of chapters on the other side of Jerusalem Bible is the Jewish tradition. And even now somebody went and published a Bible, we've got many of them around in the yeshiva, which follows the Masoretic tradition of division of chapters. So it's very difficult to go and follow the Masoretic tradition because all the print editions follow the Christian one. Now I'll tell you where this comes out in the first chapter of the Chumash. So turn to the first chapter of the Chumash, and what do you see? Where does chapter 1 end? Which verse? Can you look it up? Just look first page of the Jerusalem Bible. Where does the first chapter end? Well, it ends on the end of the 6th day. Then Vaychulu Hashemayim v'Oretz, the script of the Shabbat begins the second chapter. Mm-hmm. Yep. So they have 6 days of work, and then they start with the Shabbat and carry on. If you look on the other side of division of chapters, which is the Jewish one, whenever we read in the synagogue the beginning of the Bible, where do we end? The first section. Where does it end?
At the end of Shabbat.
At the end of Shabbat. Shabbat. Why? Because the Jewish concept is you should not make a division like this to cut off the 6 days from the 7th day. In other words, the Christian concept, they didn't really get to this properly, is that in the weekday, so you do secular activities. The weekday is secular. The Sunday or whatever the Sabbath is holy. Yeah? Now we have to separate them. And the truth is, we also make Havdalah ben Kodesh v'Chol. But with Havdalah ben Kodesh v'Chol, the separation between that which is holy and that which is secular. The purpose of the holy is to sanctify the weekday. And therefore we have a law, you've got to add from the weekday to the Shabbat, before and afterwards. That's the reason we have to add. Also, when you make Kiddush, you don't start with the Shabbat. When you make Kiddush Friday night, what do you start with? You start with Vayera Vayvoka Yom HaShishi, Vaychul HaShamayim. You do not divide between the end of the 6 days and the Shabbat. Why? Because you've got to recognize the Shabbat is the source of blessing, but the blessing extends earlier and afterwards. The Shabbat brings blessing to the whole week. The whole week you should do your work, but dedicate it to Hashem. In other words, you can't even find in here a reflection of the following statement made by the early Christians. Give unto Caesar that which belongs to Caesar, and give unto God that which belongs to God. You divide between the two. Your politics, your economics, and your business, that's weekday. But the Sabbath, you've got to be holy, which is the opposite of the view of the Torah. The Torah says, the holy is there is to sanctify that which is not yet holy. Sanctify the weekday. You've got to do weekday activities. Hashem wants you to do them. But to recognize it comes from Hashem. As it says in the Chumash, you should do your work, recognize that the power to do your work comes from Hashem, it's not from you, and therefore Hashem will then bless you in everything that you do. The blessing of Shabbat's got to come to the week and not the other way around. And therefore, we start with and allowed, we start with Yom HaShishi, Vaychul HaShamayim. Also, this hint in this, if you look carefully, what is the name of God that's used in the first 6 days? And even on the 7th day, what name is it used?
Elohim?
All the way through. Elohim is the God of nature and the God of justice, where everything follows a pattern. The pattern of the week has been brought down from the level of nature to develop the better nature of the human being. Now, if you go after the end of Shabbat, what's the first verse according to the usual chapter division of chapter 2? What's it say?
The Jewish Bible is Eile.
Eile, Toldot, Hashemayim va'aretz, Yibora'am. This is the development of heaven and earth when they were being created. B'yom asot Hashem Elokim. Eretz v'shamayim. When Hashem, who is Elokim, made the earth and the heavens. So, first of all, why does it change over here, the earth before the heavens? And yet it says Eretz v'shamayim, the other way around. Secondly, why does it come in here, the ineffable name of Hashem? So, just developing more deeply. The ineffable name of Hashem represents the transcendental power of Hashem, which is beyond nature. Elohim is the power of Hashem shown in the harmony of nature. But above everything else, the essence of Hashem is beyond nature, beyond the human mind. It really means the one who causes everything to exist and who is the source of causality. You know, the big question, like in the famous popular book, in America it's popular, Herman Wood. Some would become the greatest recent novelist in America, Herman Wood. But he became a Balthasar, he had quite a bit of a frum education till he was in his teens. Then in fact he says in the first edition of This Is My God, he says when he went to what they call it, a Sunday school where they taught a bit about Judaism. So the teacher said, yes, you can prove the existence of God because everything has a cause and he's the first cause. So he asked, well, who caused God? And the teacher couldn't answer it, didn't know enough. So when I first gave a shiur, and this I said to my students, I read it out, I said to them, please write to Herman Wood and tell him that the answer is given in the Chumash. When Moshe Rabbeinu asked, what is the name of the person I'm going to, which you are? It's the first divine revelation to Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem revealed himself to him. What is the name? So he said, the name is I am that I am. What's that mean? In other words, everything else in the world exists because of something else. But God is the one who causes existence. He is the absolute existence, whose existence is because He is the source of every aspect of thought and existence that exists in the world. What's called transcendence in philosophy. So He's the transcendent God. Therefore, He just like He created time and space, which also mentioned that verse, He also created causality. The one who creates causality is part of the logical way in which human beings think, is part of what can be conceived by the human being whose whole knowledge is limited by time and space. It's also limited to the concept of causality. But there's a power beyond all this, that is Yud Kei Vav Kei. So now I want to ask you something else. Why is it Eretz v'Shamayim? So why is the name of Hashem only mentioned here? So before coming on to this, I want you to tell me what are the first letters of Yom HaShishi Vaychulu HaShamayim, how we start Kiddush aloud. When you make Kiddush Friday night, you say quietly, Vay'erev, Vayvoka, then you say aloud, Yom HaShishi Vaychulu HaShamayim V'aretz V'chol Tzva'am. Tell me what are the initial letters.
Yud Kei Vav Kei.
In other words, the bond between creation, which we can view from below, And if we analyze creation properly, we won't be able to avoid accepting the existence of a creative God. You can't avoid it. In other words, what's called today in the constant debate of the designed universe. Yeah, debate in American states and so on. Are you allowed to teach the designer concept of creation, which is really the most scientific concept? And even if scientists sometimes use other words, if you analyze what the words really mean, they can't avoid the fact the world is filled with design and purpose. And even one of the greatest authorities on laws of chance, and great evolutionists as well, he came to the conclusion, through the laws of chance, you can't get away from the fact that the whole universe, every aspect of it, especially if you believe in evolution, but also if you don't, there's a pattern here. And the pattern means there's a designer. And the designer means is beyond what he's designing. He's the one who creates everything all the time. So this is a basis of understanding. Through Elohim you come to Hashem. But Hashem can only really be accepted on a higher level when you come to the creation of man. And the difference between the first chapter, where man is the pinnacle of creation, but still within the context of what's called the anthropic universe, that means we find the universe, all of it, even the wider universe, and also this globe, we see there's a concept of purpose to produce the human being. That's called today in modern science the anthropic aspect of understanding the universe. That means that really, to some extent, this globe and man in it is the center of the universe. From the scientific point of its purpose. Although it's just the smallest speck in the wide universe. It's the smallest speck, in order that we appreciate that the world is so great that it's far beyond time and space, which was recognized by Einstein also. But anyway, so this is when Eretz v'Shamayim, that Eretz, this globe, becomes the center if human beings follow the will of the Almighty, which was revealed to them from an absolute transcendental source at Sinai. That's why the Aleph of the Torah is Anochi, the first word of the Decalogue. The Beit of the Torah is to view nature. But the human being first sees nature. The baby, when it's born, that doesn't have yet realization, doesn't have da'at yet. His da'at has to develop. Would have recognized that says 19th chapter of Tehillim, that the whole basis of the natural universe is Torah Hashem Tamima. Anyway, this is why there's an aspect of the Shabbat already, which is shown by the Yud Kei Vav Kei, that the Shabbat represents a power from above that descends into our universe, which we can experience. And our task is to go and use that Shabbat in such a way to say that we recognize all the powers we have in the week to serve Hashem will transform our whole life. I'll bring it up to date, this question, by, in fact, I gave this at the time when his book was one of the most famous bestsellers in America. It's called Harvey Cox, a very deep thinker, especially he dealt that was the time in the 60s and 70s, when especially in the university campuses of America, there was a very keen power to find out about Far Eastern aspects of philosophy and religion and meditation, which became very popular. And Harvey Cox, he wrote works on this. He was one of the main thinkers in this area, and he wrote a book, Looking East, to understand the difference between the Eastern religions and the Western outlook, Western philosophy, Western religions. So he describes there in the most unique chapter. In fact, on my first visit to Boston, Harvard, I spoke there, Harvard and Boston University, a few universities, I spoke, 3 universities in Boston. So this was my main subject. And I quoted him he has this chapter, a most unique chapter. Person, he said, he was trying to find out which is the right approach to life, to understand it. Is it meditation, or is it pragmatism? There's a big divide between these two outlooks upon life, which express themselves in lifestyle, in mysticism, and in philosophy. And this was a debate amongst not only intellectuals, it spread to many. They went over to the gurus and to the Maharishi and so on, and went into meditation to find out the truth of life and the truth of their own selves. So he said like this. He had a friend who was a rabbi, who happened to be an Orthodox rabbi. And it happened once that his aeroplane, he had a certain flight, and it had to come down in that place where there was this rabbi. So he phoned up the rabbi. He was there on Friday. He said, "Look, I had no real intention of coming to this city, but since I've made friends with you in different discussions, I would like to spend the Saturday with you. Because I've read about the Saturday. I want to know what the Jewish Saturday like." And this rabbi, he kept the Shabbat completely, and he experienced that Shabbat. So he said he came out from that Shabbat, and now he understood what is the difference. He said the contrast between East and West is that in the East, the whole outlook is pragmatic, whether it's philosophy. The question is how to be active in life, how to use all your talents to be able to develop nature and understanding of nature. The Eastern approach is look aside from doing. All the time you want to be doing things. Some people want to do things to have pleasure, others to have power, others to find the truth. So they keep on doing. Others, even through a pragmatic outlook upon life, they come out with a deep control of their life and big advice for society, how it can improve, and from a pragmatic level. Does it work? It's doing. The Eastern approach is saying, no, being. You think with all activity you'll get anywhere. Just sit down, do yoga and meditate, and then you get to the core of life. You feel being. You make a bond between yourself and the oneness which exists in nature, which is Ouspensky was the time even a Western person who made Eastern philosophy and mysticism more popular in the Western world. Ouspensky, I don't know if you. So there were others as well, many great thinkers. They went to the Lama, they went to Maharishi. Maharishi even said meditation is not a religion, it's a science. He had college of meditations. And he said, look, it's scientific. Because it says, people meditate in such a manner, they reach the truth. And that is the way in which you can develop yourself, have more understanding of the reality of life, of your own life, and the life around you. That is the way through meditation you can influence your environment. If you will make an alliance with the oneness of the world, however you interpret it, if it's Buddhism or if it's a different type of concept, some Indian meditation, different meditation, you'll be able to influence your environment as well. I still remember when it became very strong here in Israel as well. There's a strong movement of transcendental meditation. We got quite a lot of students who went in for it. And even one of the students, was a teacher of meditation before he came. So he actually went to the Maharishi. At that time he was the head was in Switzerland, where his college of TM, Transcendental Meditation. And he asked him, what should he do now? He became a teacher. Where should he teach? He said, then he said to me, I'm Jewish. He said, do you know anything about Judaism? He said, no, nothing. Just go to Jerusalem and find out about you can do meditation there. Find out what it is. So he came to us, and I showed him what meditation exists in the Torah. And he did meditation, and he gradually found out, as I put it in one of my talks at the time, he found out that TM does not only stand for Transcendental Meditation, it stands for Torah and Mitzvah. Torah Mitzvah. He became a Shomar Torah. and which limits meditation a bit. In fact, when he was saying that, after others saying that, I asked, there was also a movement, the TM, in Israel, and there was a whole discussion. It came into the postscript. Somebody asked, is it permissible for people who do transcendental meditation to have a mantra? Because I said to everyone, you shouldn't do mantras, because mantras don't have a meaning. That was my analysis. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just that in order to meditate, you've got to concentrate upon a certain word. If you don't have a certain word to concentrate upon, then the concentration does not become in any way strong, because you can't just do it with the power of thought alone. The thought has to have some expression. They said, just give a word. So I said, what difference make which word you use? Well, there's also a very interesting response of Rav Yosef on this, because the meditation was growing in many circles. People asked him, is it permissible or is it forbidden? You're not supposed to go follow the Chukot HaGoyim. It's part of the Chukot. I mean, my interpretation of how the Eastern religions and philosophies developed, I've already told you, it's got to do with Sanskrit. The Brahmas, they were called, the Brahmas. The Brahmas came of Ramavino, but they were Shemot Shiltuma. So therefore, what they've done, so I had a meeting with the head of Transcendental Meditation in Israel, and I asked her, what difference? You should give people different words. Why do you choose those words? So she claimed that the one who gives out the mantras, they have to be big experts, and they try and find the shoe that fits this leg. In other words, just like you have to have an expert, shoe expert, to tell you which type of shoe fits your leg. So you've got a big expert in meditation, that was her mashal, that was her parable. You've got a big expert to tell each person which word he should choose. They've got different words. But the truth is that this is an element of Buddhism, or element also of meditation, that they nearly all the words that they use have a connection with an idol. Because all this is the concept. It's too difficult. Look, it's not easy for a person to make a connection with Hashem. We see there was the Chet HaEgel. They said, how can we serve Hashem if we would have something concrete? Moshe Rabbeinu is not with us. Some people, they even almost worship Moshe Rabbeinu, because he does all the miracles. He does in the name of Hashem. We know Hashem, we can't see him. You can't see him, and the ordinary people can't hear him. So we say, but he is the real existence. How do you know? So Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching us. But many of them came from Egypt, and they were used to the fact, even when you reach Hashem, you've got to have a medium. What's going to be your medium to him? That's the origin of idolatry. And that's the origin also of the mantra. If you go back to the origin, they're nearly all words that are connected with idols. Even if some of the teachers, they don't even know that anymore, but they know they've got to give a special mantra. So even I said to people, forget about your mantras. Our mantra is Shema Yisrael. Why, when a person says Shema Yisrael, does he have to cover his eyes? Because he shouldn't look at the world. He should try to get concentration on Hashem. But with us, it always goes to the Pesukim. That's even when they have a law here that in memory of someone you should have 5 minutes silence. I say no, don't make silence. Fill that silence with a chapter of Tehillim. I tell them, because that's much better. We are not on the level that we can shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid without some speech, and that's why even it says if you can't have speech when you daven the tefillah, you have to have kavanah that you stand lifnei miyat, you're standing in front of Hashem who is invisible. So you have to have concentration. What should be a concentration? Concentration should be that you are standing in the Holy of Holies. You're standing there. It says, when a person davens, you've got to turn towards the Yerushalayim. If you're in Yerushalayim, you've got to turn to the Beit HaMikdash. If you're around the Beit HaMikdash, the Kotel, you turn to where is the Holy of Holies. Put your face in that direction. And in your mind, you should picture to yourself, I am standing in the Holy of Holies in front of the Holy Ark, and there I find myself in a dimension which is above time and space. But at least you've got a picture in your mind. And also the other meditation is called the Shiviti. The Shliach Tzibor in many synagogues has in front of him a plaque. The plaque is sometimes a menorah. In any case, it's got Shivita. I put Hashem always before me. They say, think of the name. You could not allowed to pronounce the name of Hashem. Must not pronounce. And that's when we do say it, we say Yud K Vov K. Yeah? But you don't actually say the letters as we pronounce them. But you should think of the letters. Because by thinking of the letters, you know you think of Hashem. There's a deeper symbolism also. Deeper symbolism is because the Yud is a dot. A dot really can't be seen. A dot which has no measurement. And the Vav is a line that's already one direction. And the He represents 3 dimensions. Because it's not just a line, it's an area. And the area is an air, and it's not just an area, it's a cube. So they've got 3 dimensions. The He represents 3 dimensions. So you think there are 3 dimensions of space which have been produced through Yud, K, Vav, K. So you've got some concept. But therefore silence, the highest praise to Hashem is to be silent. But at least have an image in your mind. So also we need it. Now the whole of Tefillah is working on meditation. But meditation combined with verses. Sukkot Zimra is just filled with inspiration from the fantastic world that surrounds us, of which we have a better understanding. The more you know about the universe around you, the more you can appreciate the greatness of Hashem. And that's why let's all the books that we've got we've got hundreds of books, the books of Rebbe Miller and others that describe all the fantastic, miraculous aspects which are being discovered day by day anew on a higher level in the world around us. I mean, if you start, if that's why you find the Chovot Halvov Dudes at the heart, where it says you should try and get an understanding according to your ability of the fantastic beauties and the marvels that take place all the time in the world around us to appreciate Hashem. So, now to go back to the main concept, already gone beyond time, is that Shabbat represents the way in which Hashem enters into our physical world from above. But it's Kfir, it's a constant flow of divine power that goes into the nature of the world and nature of man. And Yom Tov represents a meeting time, where we from below have to do our part, to take out from our own experience inside to meet Hashem. So we've got to work at it from below. Therefore the Sanhedrin have to fix when it takes place. Sanhedrin representing the people of Israel. We are the ones who have the duty to do our best to reach up to Hashem. And Hashem is the one who constantly flows down its spirituality from above. Then we have in the life, each individual and all the nation of Israel, powers that come from above, but he wants us also on Yom Tov to meet him from below. There's the concept of Moadim, like the tent of meeting, where also there's a meeting through the building of the sanctuary made by the people, where the people serve Hashem with different offerings and so on, to meet Hashem halfway. If we will use all the symbols of the priestly service, Beit HaMikdash, use them to rise up to spirituality, Hashem will respond from above. Similarly, in time, on the festivals, Shabbat, Hashem has the power of his spirituality coming into our world. Eretz v'shamayim. That's Hashem Elokim. Okay. So please, any questions on this? I have to leave for tomorrow. Because also now Rav Zitzim will give a shiur next week's parsha.
Thank you,
I'm
Rabbi.
very grateful to Hashem that he fulfills a blessing to me, as I think all of you witnessed now. In the morning we say, Hanoten la ye'ef koach. Hashem gives a person who's tired, you pray to him. He gives you koyach, he gives you strength. Perhaps even I went too far today. Going beyond the time allotted. But this morning I didn't know if I could properly read any verse completely with a voice that other people can hear.